Okay, guys. So I've been to see 28 Years Later by Danny Boyle and Alex Garland. Now, I like Danny Boyle films. I think over the years he's made some belters. This one, well, let's just kind of how do I describe this one? It's I think from a thought perspective, it's excellent because it makes you talk about the film. Is it a particularly good film? I'm still not decided yet, and I saw it a week ago. And I was sitting thinking about why I would come to camera and say this. And the reason why I'm talking like a film review is because it was filmed in and around where I live. So the dialect that the characters in the movie make, I resonated with it straight away because it sounds I hear every day. The sights that you see in the film, well, I live there, and it was filmed in some of the shots were filmed just outside the back of my house. And then there's Lindisfarne, which is where the like little commune is based. I know it. I know it very well. I like going up to see houses. In fact, it's one of my favourite places to go for fish and chips. And then you just go along the road to Holy Island and Lindisfarne. But as a setup for the film, I understand why they use Lindisfarne, because it does have a natural causeway that is sort of dictated by the tide. When you've got high tide, you can't get on the island. Low tide, you can get off. So from a plot sense of view, it's ideal. So you've got these inhabitants that are living quite peacefully away from the infected on the mainland, but they are kind of cut off as well. So they have to go into the mainland to get certain supplies in order to survive, because Lindisfarne's only a small place. Now, that I understand, and I thought it was pretty good. And then there's certain elements that, as it flashes through the film, I recognise the streets and landmarks that were there. So, yeah, kind of sits with me quite well. Now, as a film, is it any good that you would pay money to go and see? Well, let's have a think about that one, shall we?
Fuck no!
Well, first of all, let's compare it to the first two. Is it like 28 days later or 28 weeks later? Well, 28 days later, I thought was fantastic. It was very gritty. It was quite scary because it created the zombies that were very fast, or the infected. And then in the sequel, they kind of ramped it up into the Hollywood style. And they brought in big name characters, sort of like Robert Carlyle. Now, I think Robert Carlyle is fantastic. You know, his range is superb, from being kind of goofy all the way through to being totally menacing, as he was in 28 Weeks. Now, this particular film, I think it lends more to 28 days than 28 weeks. Now, there are talk that 28 weeks was completely forgot about. No, I don't think it was retconned too much, because there is mention in the film that they pushed the virus back out of Europe and it was contained solely in the British Isles. And then what they do is they put a military zone round it, and nobody comes in, nobody goes out. Just let them get on with it. Now, that created a plot hole later on in the film where you see some military guys come in, but they're all in full tactical gear. And the film's kind of, well, let's just say there's some stupid moments that you just think, are you really these special forces super guys sort of thing? Or are you just military muppets? Either way, something's not quite right here. And when they say they're coming off a sinking ship, they're in full tactical war gear. I think it might have been easier to say they were coming in to catch an infected to see if they can get a cure or something. That might have been a little bit stronger storyline rather than what they presented. And things just got out of hand and they just couldn't cope. So that's kind of a plot hole. But the plot itself, if I kind of just do a loose base on it without giving any spoilers away, because I don't want to spoil it for you. I do think there'll be a lot of people who'll go see this film and think it's fantastic. And I think there'll also be a lot of people that will go in and go, well, it's not that clever. It's one of those films that will definitely divide opinion. And it's kind of split into, I would say, multiple stories at once. So you've got the first story, which is the coming in age of a young boy. He's 12, 13 years old, called Spike. And the kid who plays him, Alfie Williams, pretty much carries that film right through. And for somebody of his young age, he's excellent. He is truly good. He carries the emotions of fear and joy and everything all together. The kid was superb. But that's not taking anything away from the other actors. Because Aaron Taylor-Johnson, he's been around a while. All right, he's been in some duds. But he's pretty good in this film, you know. You can see who he is. He's the father of the child, and he's trying to pass on his skills, but he's not unjarred, shall we say. He has some inner demons that he has to resolve. And the kid sees that, and it creates another story. And the other story is around his mother, called Isla, played by Jodie Cromer. Now, again, you're not rightly sure what's wrong with her, but it's certainly something bad. And sometimes she's lucid, sometimes she's not, and she's aware, and the kid loves it. Which, let's be honest, it's a mother and child situation. Of course he is. Now, the first part of the film is really Spike's coming of age and sort of learning skills from his father. They go off onto the mainland to get some supplies, because with them being locked in a commune, they don't have much, so they've got to have hunter-gatherers. And everybody has a job in the commune, so you've got people that can repair things, tailors, school teachers, that sort of thing. And then they have a little supply shed that states clearly, take what you want, but only if you need it. So nobody's greedy, and they all work together, and that's fantastic. So he's learning to be part of that environment. They go on the mainland, and what you discover is the rage virus zombies have evolved. Now you've got slow, sort of sluggy style things that are just horrible. And he's there to sort of get his first kill, and that's obviously an easy kill. Then you've got the ones that run around like bloody lunatics that we've come to grow and love. And then there's a new strain, the stronger, bigger, and almost intelligent. And they're called alphas. And they've got let's say the alphas for a good reason. You know, they all run round in the Billy Big bollocks, and trust me, they've well, they should have called it 28 inches later, really. I think, judging by the look of it and the fact that Joanne woke up and decided this is the time to now start watching the film.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Says something about the other sex, doesn't it? But yeah, he's running around quite free. But this then creates more plot holes than enough, because you see one of the infected's pregnant. So how did he get pregnant? Was it pregnant beforehand, or are the zombies now starting to create some form of society where they care for each other and stuff like that? It raises a lot of questions. It doesn't answer them too well, but it does raise the questions. And there is sort of like a baby born within from an infected. And it's like, what? How? Surely you kill this thing. But then you find out that it's not infected. And then that comes into the storyline. So there's all these things, but that's further down the line. But so the first story is really the kid coming to terms with, he's starting to grow up, and he needs to learn the skills from his father, become a hunter-gatherer. While they're on the mainland, they get trapped, and they can't get back to the island because the causeway would have been closed, high tide. So they've got to spend the night in a knackered old farmhouse, which then kind of gets attacked, and they've got to run for it, and they get back to the island in the nick of time. Bit Hollywood. But that's kind of where this all sort of, that part of the story ends. But Spike now has to sort of look at what's happened in those events. And in part of going on the mainland, they saw a fire, and he didn't know what it was. And the father wouldn't really tell him. He just said that the guy who lights the fires is a lunatic, and you've got to stay away from them. To which Spike is now talking to one of the elders about this. And he says, oh, that'll be Kelson. Now, Kelson is a doctor. So Spike, being of a young age, now wants to put two and two together and think, well, we haven't really got a doctor on the island, but there's one on the mainland. My mum ain't very well. I'll take me mum to the doctor and cure her. And that becomes the second story. So buggers off in the night with his mother. And there's a few other events where he got a little bit disillusioned with the way that his father is. Not that he's a bad man, it's just that he's not really as clean cut as what kids would idolize. And he gets to see that. So he decides, right, that's it. I'm taking my mother myself since you're not doing it. So that's what he does. And then this adventure now comes where Spike is now trying to use the skills that he's learned to find Dr. Kelson. Now, in the way, this is where the military tactical guys come in, and it all gets a bit of a mishmash. Anyway, they find their way into a derelict train because they hear some screaming, and that's where the baby comes from. And then they take the baby as well as the mother to the doctor, and then you see Dr. Kelson, and he's all sort of painted up, but he explains in quite a simple way why he's painted the way he is. Because first of all, you look at him, you think he's a lunatic, gone back to the Stone Age, but he's not. He's kind of trying to do the right thing with the little things that he has in his own way as a resemblance, or a remembrance rather, to people that have fallen. But that's also the infected, because he kind of cares for them as well. And that comes back to the fact that he's a doctor. Now, bits and pieces go on, and he can't really treat the mother. I mean, one, he hasn't got the equipment to do it, but he diagnoses it. And we'll kind of leave that there, because that becomes another part of the story. But the way Alfie Williams playing Spike conveys what he's seeing and the truths that he's hearing is fantastic to see in a young kid. He really is really good. And then he takes the baby back to the commune because it wasn't infected, is confirmed. But he doesn't want to stay there anymore, and he goes back to the mainland on his own, which I found quite odd. He's 12, 13 years old. I was eating worms at that time. You know, I'd want to be safe and warm, but no. He's learned to fire his bow and arrow, and he's back off in the wilderness. And then a saviour comes who happens to be the worst saviour on the planet, because as soon as you see it and you recognise the symbolism, you'll go, what on earth are they trying to do here? You know, this is horrific. And then it turns almost into a slapstick comedy, and the film ends. It literally ends in the middle of it. Just goes, and you're like, what? Did I miss something here? What the fuck was that? But then that's why it raises the questions. And the character that comes in at the end is actually one of the first characters that you see at the beginning, because the opening sequence of this film sort of leaves you with, holy crap, there is nothing off the table here. You know, it is quite a brutal opening. And you just think, shit, this is going to be a ride. This is going to be a proper gore fest. And then it wasn't. And then it comes to this bit at the end where I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it. But I'm just saying, this character comes with his little band of other characters, and they all look like each other. And you're like, of all the people that you could pick, like as a hero point of view, even if it's an anti-hero, the guy they've gone with would have been last in the queue. And I mean, I would have put Hitler first. You know, this guy is below him. You sort of think, what the fuck is going on here? Anyway, cut long story short, did I like it? If I was going to score it, probably a 6. If I was scoring it out of 10, I would go about 6. If I watched it on a Saturday afternoon, just on Netflix or sort of my Amazon Prime or whatever movie channel subscription you've got, I'll probably go, yeah, that was okay. That wasn't bad, that. But to go to the cinema and you sort of go to the audience of this world now, and they charge you a fortune, it weren't worth the money I paid to go see it. Which is sad, because the other two were brilliant. I really enjoyed them. And this one, well, it was okay. Anyway, who knows? I might start doing a few more film reviews, because I go quite regular. And some I get really excited about, and others as well. And this one, I don't know. This one I just thought was odd. It was one of those films that it'll definitely get you talking. And I do think you should see it. But mainly just to see it from a different perspective to the other two. And cherish your thoughts. Tell me whether you liked it in the comments. Jury's out. Joanne likes certain bits of it. Swingity swing swing. There was nothing for me though. That was no good. That was shocking. You know, swing swing swing, girls. Scruff, nothing. Bollocks. Well, it was bollocks actually. It was big fucking bollocks. But there you go. 28 years later. What do you think? Catch you soon.